What's up, everybody? And welcome to another episode of Say What? Barstool Parlay. As always, I'm your host, Austin Froberg, and we're getting into it. Hit like, hit subscribe, share with your friends. Let other people see the content. Promote the channel. Help us out, guys. So, let's get into it. Thanks for stopping by again, guys. What are we talking about today? Well, I know we've been doing a lot of serious topics lately, and we've been getting into a lot of deep stuff. We're gonna get a little bit more lighthearted for a minute. Well, I think lighthearted. Maybe not. Oh, wait, yeah, no, this definitely isn't gonna be lighthearted because when it comes to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, things get serious. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, guys, let's be real. They're the Dallas Cowboys of the college football world. Notre Dame is the most popular college football team in the world. Things get serious. A lot of passionate fans, including myself. So things might not go as planned, guys. So anyway, let's get into it. Notre Dame. A lot of things going on here. Well, we just watched last weekend Notre Dame get pounded by Clemson. I mean, pounded, guys. It wasn't even close. Like, Clemson dominated them from start to finish, all right? Why did this happen? Well, what are we talking about today? How to get Notre Dame back on track and what's actually going on with Notre Dame. Raw takes, no apologies, guys. I'm in a Notre Dame fan group. I fight with people all day online about Notre Dame, all right? Fight with them all day. Because it's a problem with our society today. We're just okay with mediocrity. We're just okay with being okay. Brian Kelly has got to go, guys. Raw take, no apologies. Brian Kelly, he's an okay coach. He's okay. He's shockingly average. And he's not a coach that's going to get you over the top. He's not a Dabo Swinney. He's not a Saban. He's not a Ryan Day. He's not an Urban Meyer. He's not going to get you over the top. And people say, oh, you want to fire Brian Kelly after 10 wins? Who are you going to hire? Who are you going to hire, man? Who's better than Brian Kelly? Who's going to get 43 wins at Notre Dame? Give me a name. I just named him a second ago. Urban Meyer, a Notre Dame alumni, who said before Notre Dame is his dream job. Urban Meyer, duh. Like, come on. Well, Urban Meyer has turned down the Notre Dame job before when he was interviewed for it because Notre Dame's academic standards are ridiculous for athletes. And Urban Meyer was okay with it because Urban Meyer is probably the best recruiter in the history of college football other than maybe Nick Saban. Okay? So Urban Meyer, well, and Dabo's getting there, all right? Dabo gets some talent. So, we need a few more years on the resume for Dabo, but he's getting there. But currently, Urban Meyer, top 5 college coach of all time, first ballot Hall of Fame, easy. Top recruiter other than maybe Saban. You could argue either way. I wouldn't put up a fight much of either way between him and Saban. But when it really comes down to it, guys, Urban Meyer was okay with the grade standards. The problem was that he wanted to just literally lower them like a tick. Like, I think the grade standards for athletes is like a 3.7 or something for Notre Dame. He wanted to drop it like a couple points, like from 3.7 to 3.5. Okay, nothing insane. Just enough where he could just barely reach into those borderline people that just couldn't quite hit the grade standard. They're still qualified. They're still really good students. They just weren't quite Notre Dame academic, but they're right on the borderline. They're one good test for making the cut. He's just lower it to 3.5 so I can actually still get those players. That's it. That's all he wanted. He was okay with not being able to recruit the kids from Alabama who are 5-star recruits and can't read. He was fine with moving on from that and being I'll take intelligent kids that are really good athletes. Why? Because the point that everybody wants to make is Notre Dame academic standards are a problem. Yes and no. They're a problem, but they're not the problem. Because even Brian Kelly is making it work with the academic standards. That's not the problem. And to be real, guys, IQ upstairs, being smart recognizing plays, recognizing defenses, knowing what you're supposed to do, making heads-up plays, and having a smart IQ on the field is just as important as your athletic ability. Ask people that recruit quarterbacks. What's like number one thing? Oh, this kid was a 4.0. He's smart. He's a good decision maker. That's also valid at every other position in football, okay? So having smart kids on your football team is not a bad thing, first off. Second off, the whole idea that there's no athletes that are smart is just completely retarded. It's just absolutely asinine. There's a lot of athletes that are very, very, very smart, and there's a lot of athletes that are 4.0 students, okay? So that's just completely outrageous to say that the grade standards is the biggest problem. It's a problem. Could we get more talent and more recruits with lower grade standards? Obviously. I mean, that's a given, but it's not the problem. We can still win with things the way that they are, all right? So one, we need to hire Urban Meyer. Point blank, period. Whatever he wants to do, just hire him, okay? Like, I'm done with, oh, well, we get 10 wins over Syracuse, Navy, and freaking Pitt. Like, who cares? Any good coach with a decent team should be able to win 10 games every year in that freaking schedule. Like, come on. But then when you play the best teams, like I said, it'd be one thing if we lose. If we get beat 35-28, or 24-30, or, you're competitive and you lose, it is what it is. Shit happens. You lose a game. Alabama doesn't win them all. Clemson doesn't win them all. Ohio State doesn't win them all. Shit happens. But when you're never, and I mean never, even competitive in the playoff, you're never competitive in a big game, and don't give me that like, oh, well, we were competitive with Georgia a couple years. Really? How many times did Georgia win a national championship when we played them? How many times was Georgia really, like, realistically a top 5 team? They're just another average college football team. Okay? But when you play the top teams, Clemson, Bama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, whoever the tops are at that time, and you get smoked every single time, that's a problem. It's a big problem. And it's not okay. Because what most people like to throw out the window is, well, you have to be realistic with your expectations. I am realistic with my expectations, guys. This isn't New Mexico. This isn't BYU. Like, this isn't Arizona State. Like, this is Notre Dame. We're one of the most successful programs in the history of college football. Like, you're held to a different standard. Like, this isn't New Mexico where we're happy if we win games. Like, this is Notre Dame where you're expected to win titles. Like, we have, like, we're top 5 in the number of most national championships. Like, it's expected here. Like, it just is. So that whole, we win 10 games at least. Okay, who cares? You think Alabama's impressed by playing Syracuse and dropping 80 on them? You think that's impressive to Alabama? Because it's not. It's not. They don't care. They want to win national titles. Beating Clemson by 20 points is impressive to Alabama. Clemson beating Notre Dame by 20 points is impressive to Clemson. They don't give a shit. Clemson doesn't give a shit if they drop 60 on Duke. Duke, they're never going to win that game anyway. That's literally a walkthrough for Clemson. Clemson wants to go pound Notre Dame by 30. Then they say, oh, yeah, that's a good team. We killed them. So why do we not have the same standards? Why do we not feel the same way? I don't know. It's a good question. Well, we're going to dive into a little bit of the problems as of why. Problem number 1. Brian Kelly refuses to play talent over grade level. That's problem number 1. We have a lot of freshmen, a lot of very talented freshmen and sophomores and juniors on this roster. And we always have every year. A lot of talented individuals, a lot of talented players. Brian Kelly refuses to play them. Case in point, this year, just to keep it recent, Chris Tyree. He's the backup running back. He's a true freshman. You know how many carries he got against Clemson? One, fastest kid on the team. He's got a 40-yard touchdown, a 94-yard touchdown, and multiple. I think he might lead the team in yard or carries over 20 yards. If not, he's second to Kyren Williams, because Kyren Williams, who is the starter, don't get me wrong, is a really good back. This isn't about taking Kyren Williams and like Tyree should play instead of him. No, it's to put in a Dallas situation, Zeke Pollard. Split time in the backfield. Split time, I think Kyren should get 70% of the carries, but I think that Tyree deserves like 30. Like if Kyren's getting 20 carries, or if we run the ball 30 times in a game, Kyren should get 18 to 20, and the next 10 to 12 should go to Tyree. Okay, I think that's just fair. I think that's reasonable. All right, you split carries because they're different styles of backs. Kyren Williams is all around total package back. Chris Tyree is a burner, guys. He is a change of pace back, and it would be a beautiful combination with those two. I mean, those two, it's like Zeke and Pollard for Dallas. Zeke pounds him and pounds him and pounds him. He's a total back, and then Pollard comes in, goes for 60 because they're not used to guys hitting the hole that quick. He's a change of pace guy that gives you extreme playmaking ability on the offensive side. Case in point, he got one carry against Clemson. Do you know what happened on that one carry? One carry for a 21-yard touchdown. What would have happened if he got 3 carries in that game? What would have happened if he got 5, 6, 7, 10 carries? What if he broke off? What if you gave him 8 carries and one of them he broke off for a 94-yard touchdown like he did against Syracuse? That's the point, guys. Just because guys are young, Kelly refuses to play them. That's stupid. And his excuse for doing this is, well, they don't know the entire playbook. So what? I'm here to tell you, as a quarterback, I could see that being a problem. But there's also what Clemson does, and Alabama and Ohio State, and what the top teams do. They simplify things for younger players. You think Trevor Lawrence knew the entire Clemson playbook when he was a freshman? No. They ran a very simplistic, very vanilla version of their offense for him so he could run it. He's the best player. They put him on the field. They said he's not going to know all this, so we're going to have to tone it down and get it very vanilla and just do a lot of very simple things very, very well because he's not going to be able to comprehend anything. That's what good teams do. They adjust to their players and their talent on their roster. So what if Chris Tyree doesn't run the playbook? He's a running back. You're telling me when you run a 26 power, he doesn't know where the 6 hole is? That you learn that in rocket football. You're telling me, hey, you run between the guard and the tackle. You're telling me he doesn't know that? He doesn't understand that? That's not comprehensible to him? That's a pathetic excuse. It's a pathetic excuse. Michael Mayer, maybe the best tight end in the country right now, guys. Michael Mayer, they call him Baby Gronk. Why? Because he's built like Gronk, like almost identical, like size, stature, features. Same number. Damn, he's got the same freaking face mask, guys. And he's a big, white, athletic tight end. And he plays like Gronk. Like if you put him in a New England Patriots jersey, you'd think you were watching Gronk flashback highlights, all right? So the kid's a stud. He's a true freshman. He's one of the leading receivers on the team right now. And probably the best tight end in college football. Arguably, easily top 5, arguably the best. Brian Kelly had no intention to play him all year. He never was going to see the field because he's a true freshman. Doesn't matter that he's bigger than the other tight ends. Doesn't matter that he's stronger than the other tight ends. Doesn't matter that he's better than the other tight ends. He's a true freshman. He can't play. Do you know how stupid that is? To consistently put less than your best possible combination of players on the field just based on, he's a freshman or he's a sophomore, he's this or he's that. No, you put the best players on the field. Your job is to order a depth chart based on the best players start, the next best or second string, the next best or third. Like that's how you run a football team. That's how you run a depth chart. Not, the best player is fourth string because he's a freshman. Well, who started? Oh, the worst guy started because he's a senior. What? What kind of ass backwards logic thinking is that? And Kelly has said, like, this is his approach. He's said it publicly multiple times. Like I said, we could dive into all the logistics of the offense and how dumb his offense is, and how the fact that he's got Tommy Rees as his offensive coordinator, who is a below average quarterback at Notre Dame. He's a pretty bad quarterback. So you got a below average to bad quarterback who's now calling your plays. And by the way, his plays look pathetic, and he looks like he's way in over his head most of the time, like against Clemson, where he couldn't call any plays. He couldn't figure out anything to deal with Clemson's pressure. Like, hey, man, you love screen passes, like a lot. You don't think that maybe they're blitzing like 9 guys in every play, maybe throw a couple screens over their head? Or maybe just, like we always talk about in football, push the ball down the field, take some shots, because at the end of the day, it's 50-50. You're going to get a pass interference call. Tell your quarterback, make sure you put it in a place where only our guy can get it. Either he makes a phenomenal catch and we get some big yards, or we get a pass interference call. We get free yards. Like, obviously, duh. So, like I said, guys, this whole situation with Kelly is just mind-blowing. But I don't want to get too much into the logistics of the offense and everything, because that's a whole separate video. It's a whole separate thing we could get into. And plus, like, for most average people, guys, when we really break down the logistics of coverage and how they're reacting, it's too complicated for people anyway. So we're not really going to dive too much into that. But you should be able to make adjustments on the fly based on what you're seeing and reacting to from them and how you respond to that. I mean, that's just basic coaching, which Notre Dame does not do well. They do not adjust. Kelly's also come out and said, like, hey, like I just said, we don't make in-game adjustments. Like, yeah, we might change like a blitz or something that we're doing. We might change a coverage or something. But at the end of the day, like, we're not going to try to make adjustments. And when I say make adjustments, I'm not talking about play calling, things like that, which they don't really do either. But I'm talking about like, like a team per se has 2 big physical corners and you're starting really small receivers, but you got some underclassmen sitting on the bench who are really big, tall, physical receivers. Well, don't you think an adjustment would be to put the big, tall, physical receiver in the game to deal with the big, tall, physical corner? Wouldn't that be like a logical thing to do? No, Notre Dame just says, we're not going to do that. We're going to do what we do, and you're going to have to stop it. Well, if it's a mismatch in their favor, you don't just say, I'm going to do what I do. No, it's a mismatch. You need to fix the mismatch so it's not a mismatch anymore. Like, that's the problem with Brian Kelly and all this stuff, guys. It's freaking mind-blowing. But, like I said, he doesn't play freshmen. That's problem number one. And at least he doesn't like to. And people say, well, freshmen have played. Yes, freshmen have played, but that's the exception, not the rule. The rule is underclassmen don't play. The only reason underclassmen play is due to injuries, eligibility problems, X, Y, and Z, transfer, like whatever. When they're like literally the last guy in the depth chart, he's like, okay, well, I got to play somebody in this position. Freshmen play. All right, so case in point, Chris Tyree, Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer literally was never going to play this year, but the tight end got hurt in training camp. The other tight end, we got Tommy Tremble, who's amazing. Dude's a stud. He's just an animal. But the kid was never going to play. He's the best tight end maybe in the country, and he was never going to play because he's underclassmen. We want to start the other kid. Well, the other kid got hurt, so he was forced to play him, and then everybody said, wow, this kid's really good. And he had no choice but to keep playing him because, I mean, Notre Dame fans would have rioted if they took him out. So that's problem number one with Kelly. He'll never get you over the top because of that type of mindset, because good teams don't do that. The other part is he doesn't get his teams motivated to play. Like, you watch Notre Dame games, they show the Kelly speeches before the game. He's not a fiery guy. He's not like, let's go out there and show what we can do and prove that we are the Irish who's with me. They storm around the field. Like, that's not Brian Kelly. He doesn't get them up to play. Kelly is like literally just a calm, reserved, like, hey, like, this is like literally his pregame speech. Like, hey, listen, guys, We're here. I think we deserve to be here. You think we deserve to be here. Let's go out, execute the basics, do what we do. We've practiced for this. We know what we're looking for. Let's do what we do. Practice the basics. Play solid, fundamental Irish football, and let's go win a football game. Let's go, guys. Really, that's your big game speech? Let's focus on our fundamentals and go win a football game. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Very under-inspiring, right? Yeah. So, like I said, we got that. But I mean, it even gets worse, guys, just because, like I said, going back to the eligibility stuff, when it comes to eligibility for Notre Dame, I keep hearing the argument that, well, we get less five-star recruits than everybody else because of the academic standard. That's true. Here's what's also true. Most college football stars are not five-star recruits. And to say that we have less talent because we have less five-star recruits is so surface level and ignorant of a statement. It's laughable, because five-star does not mean you're a good football player. It means you had a really productive high school career. How many of those people wash out? A lot. Like, that's facts. So how many Hall of Famers are there in the NFL that were first-round draft picks? Very few. Most Hall of Famers are mid-round picks. They're not first-round picks. They're second, third, fourth, fifth round picks. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's a fourth-round pick. Or fifth-round pick. Fourth or fifth. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But it's a fourth or fifth-round pick. It's not a first-round pick. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. Case in point right there. You don't need to get the guy who's the most highly touted as the best in his position to get good players. Case in point, Notre Dame's linebacker, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He just won the award for top linebacker, the Butkus Award, top linebacker in the country. He is the best linebacker in the country. He can cover like a defensive back. He can play linebacker. He's a playmaker. He strips balls. He has soft hands. He gets picks. The guy's an animal. He's just all over the field. I mean, he's one of the best linebackers I've seen come out of Notre Dame since Jalen Smith, and I think he might be better. I think he probably is better than Jalen Smith. And I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm a Notre Dame and a Cowboys fan, so I've loved Jalen Smith since I knew who Jalen Smith was, because he played on both of my favorite teams. And I think this kid's better. Think he was a five-star recruit? No. 3-star recruit. Middle of the pack, middle of the road. So this whole idea that we can't get talented players that aren't 5-star recruits is asinine. That's just a stupid, simple-minded argument. Just dumb. All right. The other factor of this is the fact of, it's just flat out to continue the point that it's just not true that you can't get talented players unless they're 5 stars. You need 5 stars to compete. It's just not true. Clemson gets a lot of 5-star recruits. Correct, guys? Anybody want to disagree with that? A lot of 5 stars, right? How many active players does Clemson have in the NFL right now? 29. That's over the last 5 years, while Clemson's been on their incredible run. They have 29 active players in the NFL. How many active NFL players do you think Notre Dame has in the NFL? So how many out of all, who's 5-star, who's not 5-star, how many pro-level talent, excuse me, guys, how many pro-level talent football players did Notre Dame have on the field? Well, we don't have 5-star recruits, so it should be really low, like 2 or 3, right? 1 or 2, maybe 5 or 6, maybe 10. Give you 10, right? Should be a low number. It's exactly the same. 29 active NFL players. So that means I don't care about the 5-star recruiting. The point is, when we line up against Clemson, we are just as talented as Clemson. Our players are just as talented as them, hence the fact that we send just as many players to the NFL as them. And they're not all 5-star recruits, but they're NFL caliber football players. And if we have 29 NFL caliber football players and you have 29 NFL caliber football players, is that not a level playing field? So that's the question. Why do we get blown out? Coaching, game planning, getting your team up, motivation, personnel decisions, talent evaluation. Like, the list goes on and on. Acceptance of mediocrity. The fans' acceptance of mediocrity. Well, we win 10 games a season. That's really good. No, it's not. If you win 10 games a season in the SEC, I'd say, yeah, maybe that's pretty good. You win 10 games against an independent schedule where you pick your own games and you play Navy and Syracuse and Duke, and that's not good. That's terrible. That's horrible. It's pathetic. Shit. Let New Mexico pick their own games in an independent conference. They'll pick 10 teams that are worse than them and get 10 wins every year. Like, how is that impressive? And yeah, maybe that'd be impressive if then we would go play Clemson and compete. Yeah, okay, well, whatever, yeah. We want to make sure we get in every year. So, we play some dogs, make sure we get in every year. Okay, fine. But you get smacked every year. And this whole notion, like I said, we've now evaluated that the talent's the same. And the grades are not the problem. The talent, the recruiting, that's not the problem. We field NFL caliber football players on the field, the same as Clemson, the same as everybody else, okay? We've established that most of these teams have some of the best players in college on the team, like this year with Owusu Cormo, who's the top linebacker. Kyle Hamilton's a finalist for the best safety. Kyron Williams, I think, is easily top 5 back in college football right now. I think he's the best back in college football right now because he's the total back. He can catch, he can run, he's played a lot of wide receivers, so he's a total package back, runs hard. I don't think Travis Etienne, he's really good. He's top 5. I don't think he's as good as Kyron Williams. I just don't. I think Kyron Williams would do the same thing as him on that Clemson team, and I don't think Etienne would be as good as Kyron Williams on Notre Dame. I just don't. Kyron Williams is very impressive to me. But either way, you want to rank him 1, 2, 3, whatever. He's top 5 back. So we have equivalent running backs, equivalent defensive lines, equivalent linebackers, equivalent secondary. It's like 1 or 2 positions. Oh, well, you got a little bit better quarterback. You got a little bit better, wide receiver core, whatever. Like, talking about a couple of positions, you're splitting by a hair. Like, that means you get blown up by 30 points? No, that's just ridiculous. And it's just a stupid argument. But we really want to talk about Notre Dame and all this stuff and all these problems that they have and this, what people call this unrealistic expectation of what Notre Dame fans think. Like, well, when we have equal level talent and we're one of the winningest programs in the history of college football, I don't think winning a title is unrealistic. I just don't. So the big thing that I want to talk about here is there's a point that everybody says, well, it's not the coach puts together the game plan. It's the kid's job to execute it. When the kids get blown out, that's their fault. To say that it's always the kids' fault when they get blown is so pathetic. You think those kids don't want to go out and win an ACC championship? You think those kids don't want to be remembered forever as the kids that knocked off Clemson, as the kids that came in for 1 year to the ACC and stole the title from Clemson and said, hey, we could do this every year, but we'll just come in real quick and show you that we could do it. Do you think they don't want to be those kids? You think they're not motivated? You think they weren't motivated to completely 100% lock up their spot in the Final Four? Get real. And if it happened 1 year, a game here and there throughout Kelly's 10-year career as Notre Dame head coach, a game here and there, I'd say fine. Could be a valid point. I'll give it to you. But every the players, I mean, this is college football, this isn't pro. The players change every year. We got new players, new starting lineups every year, new players, same result. So every year, brand new players do the exact same thing, and they just aren't motivated to play, and they suck at executing the game plan. So every year, the players aren't motivated to play, and they fold. What kind of thought process is that? Oh, and the other coincidence is the other team's kids never fold and always execute the game plan perfect. Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, their kids always execute the game plan perfect. Our kids always say we're not going to show up and don't execute. So new kids every year always don't execute, and the other team always shows up. That's such a stupid thing to say. That's such a stupid point. That's so unrealistic. The fact that anybody would even say that just shows that the vastness of how dumb you are. To make a point that we recruit kids every year. We just get a bunch of kids with bad character that don't want to win. Brian Kelly draws up the perfect game plan. He's the best coach ever, and these kids just don't want to win games. Every year, we just get a bunch of kids that don't want to win games, and they can't execute the game plan. You should be ashamed of yourself to try to put that on those kids. You should be ashamed of yourself to say that every year, all those kids who are just dying to win games and play on Sundays don't want to win games and aren't given their effort, and they're not trying their best to execute game plans. So then, shame on you for that argument. Shame on you. Like I said, guys, the problem is Brian Kelly. The game plan sucks. We have equal talent. The kids are trying their asses off. The game plan sucks. The play calling sucks. The fact that he's not fielding the best team because some of his best players are underclassmen sucks. That's what needs to change. Brian Kelly needs to go. Because everybody's, well, what happens when Brian Kelly goes and then we don't even get in the playoffs? Well, guess what? I'll tell you what, guys. Notre Dame, like we said, we're playing an independent schedule. I don't know if there's a whole lot of coaches in college football. If they're a good recruiting coach in college football that couldn't come into Notre Dame, any of them, and win 10 games and get smacked by Clemson by 30. Anybody could do that. Anybody could do that. So, am I really worried that we might end up in the exact same spot with Brian Kelly? No, I'm not, because we'll end up in the exact same spot. We'll win 9 to 10 games every year, get in the playoffs, get smacked by Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and go home. Well, isn't that the same thing we're doing now? I'd rather take a chance to try to make it better. I'd rather take a chance and hire somebody who I think could take us to the next step to win a playoff game, to win a national championship. And if I'm wrong, okay, then we'll give that guy 2 or 3 years and we'll can him and we'll move on to the next one. Because we can, like Notre Dame, you can do this cycle. Like, you're Notre Dame. You can keep bringing in recruits. You can keep bringing in players. You're Notre Dame. You can go beat Navy every year, regardless of how bad your recruiting is, regardless of how bad your coach is. You'll beat Navy by 40 every year. You're Notre Dame. You're getting top-end athletes. So is it really going to get any worse with Kelly? Oh, you're telling me that any other competent head coach can't come in and beat Navy by 30 points? Like, seriously? Come on, guys. It's a sad argument. It doesn't even make sense. Like, it's just a stupid argument. So, with that being said, as a Notre Dame fan, sorry guys, we got Alabama. It's not looking good. I don't think it's looking good. And why? I think our kids are talented enough. I think we might be more talented than Alabama on paper. They have Saban, we have Kelly. That's the story of the game right there. They have Nick Saban, we have Kelly. That's the story of the game. You think that Brian Kelly is going to outcoach Nick Saban. If you do, you're insane. You're absolutely insane. I wish it would happen. I'd love to see it. But if you think and you really truly believe it's going to happen, you're just insane. Like, Brian Kelly is not outcoaching Nick Saban. It's just not going to happen. we're going to get pounded, and that's going to be the end of the season, and I'm going to cry. All right. So, with that being said, guys, as always, thanks for stopping by to another episode of Say What? Barstool Parlay. As always, I'm your host, Austin Froberg. We're going to see if we can get another perfect pour here. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share, guys, so everybody else can see the content. You can help us grow the channel, man. You want us to keep making videos? Look at that pour. Look at that. Help us grow the channel, guys. You want us to keep making videos? You want to keep, having this happen? Like, share, subscribe. Help us build the channel, man. Help us keep this stuff growing. So thanks for stopping by, guys. As always, love you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to me with some raw takes. No apologies. As always, leave some comments. Let us know what you guys think about these takes. Let us know what you guys want to see us make videos about. List topics and things that you guys want to see us talk about in the comments. You never know. Your next comment may be our next Barstool Parlay. So, hey, thanks for stopping by, guys. As always, I'm Austin Froberg. Peace. Deuces.